I called 911 on my golden boy brother. My family called me a traitor. My brother Xavier was the star quarterback with a full ride to Alabama waiting. Everyone in our town worshipped him. I lived permanently in his shadow, the kind of shadow where a thrown Xbox or an accidental black eye during backyard practice got brushed off with "Stop being sensitive, you'll ruin his career." Then, last week, I came home early with a migraine and heard screaming from his room. I cracked the door open and saw him with his girlfriend pinned against the wall, hand around her throat, her sobbing and begging him to stop. I recorded it. I called 911. He was arrested that night, out on bail by morning. By the next afternoon, my entire family was throwing my belongings into garbage bags on the front lawn. "You've destroyed this family," my mother screamed. My father, I scolded. "You have 1 hour to get out. You are no longer our son." I tried reasoning with them. My mother's response was that his girlfriend, Haley, was a gold digger, and I'd helped her ruin him. So there I sat on the curb with garbage bags and nowhere to go when my phone rang. It was Alicia, Haley's older sister, calling because she'd heard about the police report and wanted information. I was crying too hard to talk. She told me to send my location. 20 minutes later, she picked me up in her beat-up Corolla, Alicia's apartment. The second we got inside, Alicia broke down completely, apologizing over and over for not protecting her sister sooner. I sat there clutching my garbage bags, 17 and suddenly homeless, watching a grown woman fall apart. Then her phone rang, Haley, on speaker, voice shaking. Xavier had gotten his phone back and was texting nonstop, threatening to release private videos if she didn't drop the charges. He knew where Alicia lived. He knew Haley was probably there. "Op recorded him attacking you," Alicia told her sister. "We have proof." Silence, then Haley quietly. "Op has a video. The whole thing," I confirmed. "Him choking you begging him to stop." Alicia started packing. She mentioned a lawyer contact who'd said for months that these cases needed someone from inside one of these families, someone who could prove the parents knew. She turned to me. "What else do you know about what your parents have covered up?" I thought about all the swept under the rug incidents over the years. Parties girls left crying. Checks my mother wrote that she thought I hadn't seen. Hushed phone calls with lawyers. "I know everything," I said. She opened her laptop. "Then we're going to bury them. All of them. The evidence builds." Alicia had been quietly documenting Xavier's history for 2 years, ever since her best friend Sarah was assaulted by another player, and the school made it disappear through the same law firm my parents used. My phone was flooding with messages from Xavier's teammates. "Rat, career killer, you're dead to us." And one accidental slip from a teammate named Marcus. "Tell Jessica we know she talked to." Deleted seconds later but already screenshotted. "They're threatening other girls," I told Alicia. She saved it immediately. Then a knock, 3 heavy pounds. Alicia grabbed a bat. I started recording. It was Haley, fresh bruises darker than before, shaking. Xavier had walked right into her dorm. Security let him in without question. "They all love him there too," she whispered. I noticed her hand drift protectively to her stomach before she caught herself and pulled it away. She refused the hospital. "They'll call it a domestic dispute and make it disappear, same as always." The head nurse went to high school with his mom. My mother called. "One chance to fix this," she said, no greeting. "Come home, recant what I saw, and it would all be forgotten." When I told her I had it on video, she went cold. "We've already changed the lock, the codes too. Don't bother coming back for your birth certificate or social security card. You wanted to destroy this family. Congratulations." I couldn't get a job, apply for college, or function without those documents. "They're trying to make you disappear," Alicia said. "So you can't function in society without them." She pulled up a contact, a lawyer named Rebecca Chen, who'd lost her own daughter to athlete violence at another school and had spent years fighting cases exactly like this. I finally admitted I had more evidence. Videos I'd taken through my cracked bedroom door of my mother paying off Xavier's past victims, cash and instructions to stay silent, caught on camera 3 separate times. "You have video of the payoff," Alicia breathed. "This proves a pattern, proves they knew." The smear campaign begins. Haley's phone kept buzzing, threat from different numbers each time, using teammates' phones so she couldn't block them, including photos of her walking to class that morning. A clear violation of Xavier's no-contact order. Then a local news alert hit my phone. My own school photo beside a headline painting me as a jealous, attention-seeking troublemaker, with quotes from my parents about my history of acting out. An exclusive interview, already spinning the narrative before any trial. I checked my college fund. Balance, zero. $18,000, drained over 2 years in withdrawals to the same law firm. My education fund had been quietly financing Xavier's victim payoff the entire time. Then Haley ran to the bathroom, sick. When she came out, she whispered the thing that changed everything. She was 8 weeks pregnant, hadn't told anyone. A call came in from an unknown number. Coach Williams, friendly at first, offering a full ride to any school if I just remember things differently. When I told him I had it on video, his tone flipped instantly, casually mentioning where my friends live. A threat thinly dressed as concern. Rebecca Chen's assessment, once she heard everything. This wasn't just assault and cover-up anymore. It looked like organized crime, RICO territory, escalation. My parents filed a missing person report claiming I was mentally unstable and dangerous. Police cars drove past Alicia's apartment. My bank account got frozen for suspected fraud, cutting off the $243 I'd saved from a part-time job. My old school counselor, Ms. Martinez, slipped in with an envelope of my transcript, whispering her own story, a daughter assaulted by the same team 3 years earlier, herself transferred and threatened into silence when she tried to report it. "Be careful, be smart, but don't give up." Xavier posted an Instagram story that night, a party, red solo cup, teammates around him. A blatant bail violation the police would later shrug off as unconfirmable. We spent the day building a full evidence archive. The assault video, hundreds of threatening screenshots, the payoff footage, 3 years of documented cover-ups, all backed up and encrypted. At a diner, the owner, whose son played on the team, refused to serve us. A waitress slipped out the back with a free sandwich anyway. "Not everyone believes them," she whispered. Rebecca Chen arrived that evening with boxes of files from 12 other schools across 5 states, all showing the exact same pattern of cover-up. "You're the first insider willing to testify," she said. "The first with video proof of the payoff. The brick through the window." That night, Alicia's rent check bounce, coordinated interference, clearly. Haley's grandmother showed up unannounced with cash for rent, refusing to let her family's silence stand. "What that boy did to you is not okay." Then a brick came through the window, a note rubber banded to it. "Drop charges or drop dead." In handwriting I recognized instantly as my mother. Police showed up minutes later for a welfare check with no warrant, trying the locked door repeatedly secretly while Alicia filmed everything and refused entry. They eventually left, muttering about coming back with paperwork. We sat in the dark apartment, glass on the floor, 3 teenagers and a law student up against an entire town's power structure. Tomorrow we file federal charges, Rebecca said. Once it's federal, the local connections stop mattering as much. Marcus, the next morning, brought more threat. A private investigator's van parked across the street, and deepfake images of me spreading through local social media group. My parents gave 3 more news interviews escalating claims about my mental health. Then Marcus, Xavier's best friend, showed up at the door, shaking, unable to meet my eye. He handed over a USB drive and mumbled something about not being able to live with himself, then left before we could respond. The drive contained dozens of videos, Xavier's private trophies, some showing clearly unconscious girls, and footage of my parents coaching him on what to say when victims complained. My mother handing cash to a crying teenager, while my father explained the importance of protecting the family name. The stress sent Haley to the ER with cramping. A doctor unconnected to the football program documented everything: bruises, stress complications, a medical history that painted a clear pattern of long-term abuse. The next morning, Marcus was found dead in his apartment, officially ruled a suicide. His note, a confession about staying silent while Xavier hurt girl after girl, became evidence. His death became a catalyst. 7 more victims came forward within the week. The case widens. Xavier violated bail again, showing up at Haley's workplace. Security footage caught it. The judge issued only a warning. Financial records revealed my parents had structured victim payoff through their business as tax write-off. Fraud stacked on top of conspiracy. Their house had been refinanced 3 times to cover it all. A PR firm launched a Stand With Xavier campaign, painting him as a troubled young man battling unspecified addiction, using mental health as a shield while weaponizing claims about my instability. Rebecca formally filed federal RICO charges. Outside the courthouse, Xavier's supporters confronted us. He threw the first punch, breaking 2 of my ribs, all caught on camera. His bail was revoked, then reinstated days later through another compromised judge. A federal raid on my parents' house turned up a hidden safe with meticulous records of every payoff, every cover-up, dating back to when Xavier was 13. The school board meeting that followed erupted in chaos. The superintendent resigned rather than answer questions, and the coach quietly disappeared on medical leave. Then Haley miscarried under the stress of preparing her testimony. Xavier, somehow informed, texted a teammate that the problem solved itself. The screenshot went viral, and public opinion finally, visibly turned. Alabama revoked his scholarship. NFL scouts vanished overnight. My parents' marriage imploded publicly outside the federal courthouse. My mother accusing my father of creating a monster. My father retaliating by exposing her affairs with team boosters who'd help fund the cover-up. Forensic accountants found an entire ecosystem of corruption. Booster money laundered through shell companies. Families paid to stay quiet about practice injuries. Xavier at the center of all of it. Rebuilding. My English teacher, Ms. Davies, took me in despite the school board threatening her job over it. A documentary filmmaker, tracking similar cases nationwide, asked to tell our story with victims controlling the narrative. We agreed. Xavier posted an unhinged manifesto online before his lawyer could stop him, nomming target for retaliation. The FBI added terroristic threat charges to his growing list. My parents' assets were frozen. Their lawyer abandoned them for non-payment, and they were reduced to public defenders. Rebecca's investigation expanded into a template used against other schools running the same protection racket. The middle school teacher who'd first reported Xavier's violence years earlier finally came forward with evidence she'd secretly preserved the whole time. Haley entered intensive trauma therapy, determined to testify by video link despite everything. The town split cleanly in half, businesses choosing sides. The diner that refused to serve me losing half its customers. The waitress who'd helped me eventually opening her own cafe, and hearing survivors who needed flexible hours for therapy. I studied for my GED at Ms. Davies' kitchen table. Alicia began adoption proceedings, determined to give me legal stability before trial. A real family to replace the one that had thrown me out with garbage bags. Sentencing. Xavier was sentenced to 25 years, plus 5 more added on the spot after he lunged at me screaming threats in the courtroom. My parents each took plea deals for 10 years on conspiracy and tax fraud. Outside, reporters swarmed. The university, facing certain loss in civil court, offered a settlement. $50 million split among 12 confirmed victims. The high school launched new mandatory consent education and an anonymous reporting system, nomming the program after Marcus. His parents attended the dedication, grief mixed with pride that their son's final act had protected others. More arrests followed as the investigation widened. Assistant coaches, boosters, a team doctor who'd falsified medical report, each one surfacing new victims. I passed my GED with high scores. Alicia's adoption petition was approved on my 18th birthday, in front of a judge who actually understood chosen families. I left for college 3 states away, somewhere my name meant absolutely nothing. 2 weeks before I left, word came that Xavier had been killed in prison, another inmate whose sister had been assaulted by an athlete years earlier. I felt nothing. No relief, no grief, just a quiet acknowledgement that his story had ended, while everyone else's healing was only beginning. Years later, my mother, released early for testifying against my father, tried reaching out through my grandmother. I agreed to one meeting. She spent the hour explaining how none of this would have happened if I'd just handled things privately. I left after 10 minutes and never went back. Haley graduated from her treatment program and now works with a non-profit supporting assault survivors. We stayed close, building something like real friendship out of shared trauma. I majored in social work, then went to law school, specializing in Title IX compliance and dismantling athletic cover-up network. Different sport, different school, always the same pattern. And by then I knew exactly how to take it apart. My wedding was small, 20 people in Ms. Davies' backyard, Alicia walking me down the aisle, Haley standing at my side. My biological parents weren't invited. Some bridges burned too completely to rebuild. Years later, I stood before the Supreme Court as co-counsel on a case about university liability for athletic violence, not for my story, but for my expertise. My argument was precise, methodical, grounded entirely in law. No personal revelation needed. The ruling that followed established that universities could finally be held liable for systemic cover-ups. That night, back in Alicia's living room, her hair gray now, her smile unchanged, Haley stopped by with her partner and daughter. We didn't talk about the case, or the ruling, or the years of pain that got us here. We just existed together, a family built entirely out of survival. They took my blood family. What I found instead was stronger. Justice, I've learned, isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet persistence, one case at a time, one person helped at a time. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let the people who tried to erase you win by building a life worth living anyway. That's the justice I found. It was enough. What I carry forward. People sometimes ask me, usually in law school hallways or after a lecture, how I ended up specializing in exactly this kind of case. I never tell them the full version. I give them the short answer, that I saw firsthand how easily institutions protect the people who generate revenue for them, and how completely they're willing to sacrifice anyone standing in the way. It's true, as far as it goes. It just leaves out the 17-year-old on the curb with garbage bag, which is really where all of it started. I think about that night more than I let on. Not the assault itself, though that never fully leaves you, but the specific moment my mother told me not to come back for my birth certificate. There's something almost terrifying about being told, explicitly, that your own existence is now inconvenient to the people who created you. It strips away every illusion you might have had about unconditional love. After that call, there wasn't a version of me that could go back to hopping they'd come around. I had to build an entirely new definition of family from scratch, out of a law student with a baseball bat and a beat-up Corolla, an English teacher who risked her job for a stranger's kid, and a girl I'd only ever known as my brother's girlfriend before that night. Alicia and I don't talk about those first few weeks much anymore. We don't need to. It lives in the shorthand between us, the way she still flinches slightly at sudden knocking, the way I still triple-check that doors are locked before bed, habits neither of us has managed to fully unlearn. When people meet her now, they see a respected victims' rights attorney with silver starting to show at her temples. They don't see the 21-year-old who opened her door to a crying stranger and decided, in that instant, to blow up her entire life to help him. Haley's path surprised me the most. I expected, given everything, that she might want nothing more to do with any of us once the case closed, that the sight of me would always drag her back to that bedroom, that hallway, that hospital. Instead, she built her whole career around it, choosing to meet other survivors exactly where she'd once stood herself. She told me once that testifying, even broken as she was, felt like the first time in years anyone had actually let her finish a sentence. I think about that a lot when I meet new clients now. How much of this work is simply making sure someone gets to finish their sentence, uninterrupted, for the first time. The case against Xavier's old program became something bigger than any of us anticipated, spreading into a template used against a dozen other schools, other sport, other golden boys protected by the same tired playbook of payoffs and PR campaigns and compromised judges. I've since worked variations of the same case more times than I can count. Different mascots, different states, always the same architecture underneath. A talented kid, a program terrified of losing him, and a quiet machine built to make his victims disappear before anyone with real power has to answer for it. I don't know if I ever forgave my parents, exactly. Forgiveness implies a kind of resolution I never really reached. What I found instead was something more useful for the long run. Indifferent. The version of me that used to scan every crowd for their faces, brace for another lawsuit or interview or handwritten letter, eventually just stopped. Somewhere in law school, between the Title IX seminars and the first case I won on my own, their power over my life quietly expired. Not because they apologized. They never did. Just because I finally had enough of my own life built up around me that theirs stopped being able to reach it. Marcus is the one I still think about the most, more than Xavier, more than my parents. He had every incentive to stay silent, every reason to protect himself the way everyone around him had been trained to. Instead, he drove to a stranger's apartment, shaking, and handed over the one thing that could destroy his own future along with everyone else's. I've spent years since trying to build a career worthy of that decision, trying to make sure that when someone finally finds the courage to hand over the truth, there's a system in place ready enough, fast enough, serious enough to actually do something with it before it's too late for them, the way it was too late for him. Some nights, usually after a hard case, I drive past the outline of where my childhood home used to stand, sold years ago, demolished not long after, a newer house sitting in its place now, owned by a family with no idea what happened on that lawn. I don't feel much when I do it anymore, just a quiet, settled recognition of distance traveled. 17-year-old me, sitting on that curb with garbage bags, had no idea what was coming. Not the brick through the window, not Market, not the Supreme Court steps years later. She just knew she couldn't unsee what she'd seen, and that not calling 911 wasn't a version of herself she could live with. Everything after that was just the long, slow process of learning to live with the version of herself who did. Like and subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for watching.